Welcome to making a graph in Excel. In this video tutorial, we're going to learn a little bit more about how you make a graph from data in Excel and some of the things that you can choose to manipulate that a little bit differently. What we're going to start with is the data that you created in the last tutorial. Remember, it should look a little bit like this. And what I've decided to do is to make a graph that shows me how students did on the proficiency level of the WKCE. We could have graphed any number of things. You'll see some of the techniques for graphing any or all of this information and then decide how you like it to graph. So I'm going to start with this. I'm going to go with last name all the way over to, and highlight that information over to the column E, and then drag that all the way down so that I have that information. Click on the insert button, and I'm going to click column graph. We're going to make it easy for this one, and do the very first one. You've got a lot of different views that you could see, but we'll start with these types of column graphs because they tend to be some of the most common ones that we use. Notice that it takes the graph, the graph, and it puts it right on top of our table, and I don't really like that. So there are two ways to do this. If I right click on here, I can get things like select data, move chart, and do a couple of other things with this chart. Or if I just click on the button that says move chart, this same screen will show up no matter which way you choose to move the chart. I'm going to click move the chart. I'm going to rename it right away into WKCE proficiency. And you can see it makes it into a new chart. Now if we look a little more carefully at this chart here, this graph, what we can see is it puts their grade level on, and they're all in 4th grade, so that kind of skews our information a little bit. So either I can right click here again, or I can come up here to select data, and it shows me all of the different information that's going into this. It's got the dotted lines that show me which parts are going to be graphed. But let's say, you know what, I really didn't want column D put in there. I can click on the column and click remove, and it takes it out for us, and you can see all the information that's just left here. Sometimes, depending on how you've put the information on the table or on the Excel sheet that you started with, you might want to check and see, well, does it make more sense to graph it this way? I can graph, okay, here I can see all the scores going up the side, and then all the names all turn a different color. Maybe that's more of the presentation that I was looking for. For my situation, I really preferred to see it this way, so I'm going to click OK here. Now, the other thing that I don't like about this graph right now is it has the student's first name and last name, and it prints one going horizontally and one going vertically, and I'm just really not overall that thrilled about it. So what I'm going to do here instead is I'm going to change this column. I don't want to include column B anymore. I don't want the last name to show up. I only want the first name to show up on the graph. So I'm going to change this to column C. So it's going to start with C1 to C29, and that's the part it's going to graph. And then if I click OK, we end up with just their first names and their scores. That cleaned it up a little bit more. I could have gone back and changed that. Maybe I only wanted the last name, so I wanted B. So I could have changed these C's into B's, and then I would have just gotten this column and this column that it was going to graph in between. So I'll leave it with first names for now. Not a big deal. Now you'll notice on the WKC you can't score more than a 4, but this smart graph creation thought, well, maybe you can get to 4.5 because there's a lot of people that scored 4s. Well, I don't want that to be a 4.5. If I right click on one of the numbers, I can format the axis, and the axis options, well, I want the maximum number to not be 4.5. I want it to be 4. So if I click it down to 4, click OK, it'll change that maximum total so that you get a slightly different looking graph there. So that cleans it up a little bit. Now, there are other things that you can do across the top here. Depending on how many bits of data that you have, it's going to put different color bars in. And each one of these will change the type of bar that you have. And so you can pick any color you want. So that's the traditional one. Maybe I want the light blue one, so I'm gonna stick with that. The other thing that's up here in this design tab is some other ways that are quick ways to get this. If you wanted to see different parts, I clicked it down. There are different types of graphs here that automatically make stuff for you. So let's go back and start with, I'm going to start back up at this one. This is kind of the general one that I use frequently. If you click on the Layout tab, you can actually change any of these pieces of information. So if I really wanted data labels, I could put data labels inside the top or outside the end. So I'm going to put outside the end. You can get data labels on each one of those things. The plot area, if I wanted to, I could format the plot area by right-clicking here, or I could just go to this button. You know what? I want to show the plot area. Right now it's on the default color, but I really want this to kind of pop for me a little bit more. Oops. So I'm going to go with more plot options. I want a solid fill in the back, and I want this to be a nice green with blue columns, so it gives me a little bit more option here. So I've put some fill in the back. I've got data labels on it. I've got a heading. Oh, I need a label here, access titles. So I want the vertical axis, and I want it to be tilted and rotated. And if I click in here, I can put WKCE proficiency score. And now I have a there. Here it's pretty obvious that these are names, so I'm not going to put a horizontal axis in. But maybe I want to present a little bit more information. There's something I'd really like to add to this chart, but it's not automatically coming in. So I could add a text box. If I click on text box, you can see that it's still highlighted. If I come over here and I draw, left click, hold it, it will create a text box. This is a text box. And you could type in any type of message that you have there, and if you click outside of it somewhere, it just looks like it showed up on the graph. Now, maybe you wanted to comment on something special within the graph. You could also do, we've lost our piece here, so back on the Layout tab, shapes. I could insert a shape. So I really want to insert a call out. I think I want a nice little oval like that. And I really want that to be somewhere right here, so that we have a little bit of information in there. And I want this to be something that is a little bit whiter. And then I want to type in there. So if I have it highlighted, I can type right in here. So this is great job. So I've commented on this student, looks like Lexus, and pointed out something that was particularly of interest to me on the graph. So there's a little extra information here. And then the last thing I want to show you is maybe you're trying to figure out, if this is a single student and these all represent multiple points of data. So they've done quizzes that are consistent or some progress monitoring. And you're trying to figure out, well, what's this look like? Because it's up and down and up and down, and how does this look over time? If I go up to this button that says trend line, I can click on a trend line and give me a linear trend line so that it'll draw a line to show you what the average amount of growth is going like. So we can see if the student is growing a lot or if their scores are decreasing when you can't really tell whether it's going up and down and up and down. So at this point, we've seen a number of different pieces. In charts, really the design tab gets you a lot of nice, quick, easy buttons, and the layout tab gives you a whole lot of options as well. Click around. If you don't like what you did, go up here and click the undo button, and you'll get back to where you were before. And remember that in most of these cases, you can do the same thing by right-clicking right on the graph in different places. We'll give you some different options of how to manipulate this. So at this point, you can go ahead and print that chart out, show it to your neighbor, show it to the principal in the room, and you've successfully created a graph that came from a data chart that you manipulated and made a little bit more presentable for any variety of reasons. Thank you and have a great day.